Hi everyone, welcome to Wine and Whips. We took a little break, but we're back now. I was kind of trying to decide exactly what this was going to be, but I think it literally is what it is. I'm going to yap at you guys about wine and projects that I'm working on because that's fun for me. And I hope you guys are enjoying it too. So we have a great, super easy drinking wine this week. We are having Justin, my husband's, famous chicken nuggets for dinner. So we went through a brief phase, I think like a lot of people, that we tried the paleo diet. But these chicken nuggets came out of that. And it is the best recipe. They're covered in tapioca starch, tapioca flour, instead of traditional flour, and you brine them so they stay super juicy but then super crispy and puffy on the outside. And actually it's a recipe I believe from an Asian American chef. I think it came out of the Nom Nom Paleo cookbook, and there's actually still a ton of stuff that we cook out of there because it's really, really good. So chicken nuggets, great. What pairs great with chicken nuggets? The 2023 Banshee from Sonoma Pinot Noir. This is a fabulous, super easy drinking wine. I have it quite chilled. I think it's better that way. I think some people would argue, let it sit, be cellar temp. I think this is one that's good with right out of the fridge. Good amount of chill on it. It is a little high in alcohol. It's 13.9, so a little high for me. Pinots in general are. They are grown in very, very warm climates. Warmer the climate, more alcohol you get in general. So let's dig in and see what this bottle is all about. So something unique about this bottle is the winemaker actually has notes about this specific year. So if you wanted to know more, you can go to their website and they have an entire sheet about exactly when and how it was harvested and the acidity and pH and alcohol. Lots more information than what I'm going to give you, which is unique. Most winemakers, because their method is proprietary, will not tell you all of this information. Boy, it smells so good, guys. It smells so good. It is occurring to me now that I also don't have my mic on, so you guys probably can't hear me that well. So let's do that, and then we'll really stick our nose in it. I'm still figuring this whole technology thing, to be perfectly honest. I'm gonna get better at it as we go. Okay, there we go. Now we got a mic on, so that should help too. You'll also notice I am in my office, not my sewing room. That's because we're going to talk about something a little different this week when we get to the quilting stuff. So, beautiful. Smells gorgeous. Lots of cherry. Pretty typical of Pinot Noir. And I think this is because I also like Scotch, but I would say like that peatiness that you get, you know, if you're a Scotch drinker, partner's a Scotch drinker, they will ask you typically when you're at a restaurant, oh, do you like a Scotch that's very peaty? Which means it's got a lot of the wood, the moss, the damp forest. A lot of that. You can really smell damp wood and almost a little, just maybe a hint of smokiness there too. But I think that might just be, sometimes it's hard to tell, you know, when you're tasting things, if it's just because you've tasted something before that has that in it or smelled something before that reminds you of something. So you have to be very careful when you're getting your nose in there and then when you taste it. I will for sure say cherry, pomegranate, And yeah, damp, deep, big woods. Think, you know, California, redwoods, big woods. And that dampness that the forest floor gets. Let's have a taste. Excellent. I've had this one time before, but it's been a very, very long time. Very smooth. Nice, and it has that brightness, that kind of lightness when it hits your tongue. It kind of, you know, they say plays on your tongue. It really hits all of those taste buds. You get that acidity on the end, but then nice light finish. This is going to be so good with chicken nuggets, guys. I'm very excited about those. Also, Justin has learned how to do the super tiny little yellow potatoes with a smoked sea salt and rosemary. Can you tell I'm hungry? Lunch was a long time ago. Yeah, so definitely cherry, pomegranate or something pomegranate adjacent. You get that peatiness, that kind of forest floor, that damp wood, kind of the wood that, like, you know, when it's so wet, it starts to like fall apart. That. Think that smell. Like, it's still a nice wood smell, but you can tell it's been hanging out for a while. Yeah, excellent. You can definitely taste it is a little higher on the alcohol side, and there is that little bit of bite. Incredibly smooth tannin wise, very easy drinking. You can even tell, oh, this glass is real cold, so it is a little bit harder to see the color. Do I have a white sheet of paper here, perchance? No, of course not. So it is harder to see the color, but it is very light. And if you look right at the edge, I'm going to figure out how to show this to you guys better. If you look right at the edge, you can tell in general it's quite translucent, but once you get to that edge, very, very light purpley red. Very light wine. Excellent. Also, this was aged in French and Hungarian oak, which is something we haven't talked about before. So most of it was aged in French oak, but a little bit of it was aged in Hungarian oak. And at some point, we're going to talk about something very cool wine-wise from Hungary. I just have to figure out where to source it because I don't have time to jet off to Hungary. So I will figure out where to source it, and we're going to talk about something very cool that I studied. I should probably stop drinking this on an empty stomach. And I can smell those potatoes cooking. So let's get to the quilting. So we're going to talk about something that I haven't actually started, but we're calling it a work in progress because I've pulled all the colors and I know the project. So we're in the very first stage. I used to use a website called Notion, and I would kind of plan out all of my quilts, and then I would have little tags that would mark this is, you know, a work in progress at the fabric pull stage, at the cutting stage, at the, you know, I've pieced a quarter of it. I like to be organized in certain ways, and other ways, not so much. But that was kind of one of the things that fell by the wayside, and I just went to a good old-fashioned notebook. But if you use Notion, it is an excellent way to keep track of your quilting projects. So what I want to talk about this week, and I have two different things to show you that are examples, is color value. So when we are making a quilt, it is very important to think about how many lights, darks, mediums we have in the quilt so that ultimately in the end, it looks right. It's pretty. It's pleasing to the eye. Depending on the quilt and the blocks that are in the quilt, you may be just working with lights and darks. You may be working with mediums and darks. You may be working with all three. This one happens to work with all three. So this is the Ruby Sue quilt from Lo and Behold. It is super cute, super easy. It's strip pieced. And this comes in a ton of sizes. So there's as small as placemats and then all the way up to a king. And there's also a super cool, fun little tutorial that when you buy the pattern, you can make a dog bed, which maybe Oliver's going to get a quilted dog bed. We'll see. I don't know. He wasn't a very good boy today. So we'll see. Maybe one day he'll get a quilted dog bed. But this is Ruby Sue. I'm very excited to start it. I pulled these fabrics last week, actually, because I've been wanting to make this for a really, really long time. And I just said, I'm going to do it. And not that I don't have a bunch of actual works in progress. I think next week we're going to go through my stack of project boxes and like make some decisions together about what's going to get finished and what just needs to be passed on to someone. So we'll see what happens. So when you're thinking about color value, I always like to pull one kind of category first. So when I was pulling this, I pulled it in pairs, which is very different from what I typically do. So I just said I typically will pull, you know, all the darks first, or all the lights first, or all the mediums first. And then I'll start building off of that. Because of the way that this pattern is, where it's paired up, I wanted to make sure that I was pulling by pairs so that ultimately this would look right in the end and I wouldn't have to think too hard about the fabric placement. So I pulled, in this case, not only by color value, but also by texture. So I have a dark and I have a medium, and then I have a light and a light, but with texture. And that's the important difference. And then I have a light and a dark, and then these are going to play off each other. So I have two here that are actually relatively close in color value. So we have a light and a medium, but they're quite, you could call this a light in some cases. So I've got a light and a medium, and then I've got another light, but texture that pulls in this color. So that's an important thing to think about too, is if you want to do a quilt in all lights, for example, if you want to do a pastel quilt, you absolutely can. But you have to then think about texture in combination with your color value. Another great way to do this, to kind of figure out if you're on the right track, is you can take your stack of colors and lay them all out how they will be next to each other in the quilt and make a photocopy, black and white, or sometimes it'll say grayscale on your printer copier, and that will show you exactly what is a dark, what is a medium, what is a light, because you'll be able to see, okay, they're all gray now, but what shade of gray are they? Are they a light gray? Are they a medium gray? Are they a charcoal? Are they a washed black? Are they a black? Speaking of grays, I'm going to show you guys something else that is a great example of color value. So if you hadn't heard, Tula Pink's gray work is here. This is a very interesting collection. I just realized I held it upside down. Gray work is here. It's so pretty. This is a very interesting collection that plays with color value. It is all grays, but it's varying shades of gray. You've got everything from a borderline white all the way up to what I would call a washed black. It's a very, very dark gray. It's not quite black though. It would be like if you had a pair of black jeans and you washed them a dozen, 2 dozen times. They get that little bit of fading. So it's not quite black, but it's almost there. So they have ordered these in the box by their color value, which is great because it's such a good example for you guys to see. We've got a light, we've got a medium dark, and then we've got a dark. Same here. We've got a light, we got a medium dark, and a dark. Over here, we've got a light, we've got a medium dark, and we got a dark. But then, if you look closer at it, you've got lights, mediums, and darks. So this is a very interesting way to look and think about color in terms of thread. And if you haven't seen the collection, we're going to have 1,000,000,001 videos about it because it's Tula and it's amazing. But it is very interesting how she plays with that juxtaposition of light and dark, but it's all grays. So it's all one color, but all these different tones. And so that's what you need to think about when you are making a quilt is how are, you know, if you make a quilt that is, this is all purples. If it's all purples, you know, what are my dark purples? What are my medium purples? What are my light purples? And where are they going to be placed together or in relation to each other in the quilt? Another great thing, and it's probably going to be the last thing that I say because I'm trying not to ramble too much. I think the last video was like 45 minutes or something. So I'm going to try and talk at you guys a little bit less. But another great thing you can do to determine color value is buy a pair of color value glasses. So we used to sell them in the store. We don't anymore, but Feral Notions makes them. And they're super cute. You could also buy a pair from like the dollar store because they are just they're a very specific shade of like, I would say red tinted glasses, but they help you see the different color values the same way that a copier would. So very interesting there. I think that's the last thing I'm going to tell you guys tonight. I'm going to stop talking at you. This has been great. I hope you guys learned some stuff. If you have any questions about the wine or about color value, drop them in the comments below. And I hope to see you all soon. Cheers.